No alarms sounded when the object entered the system. That alone made the observers uneasy. Across the vast chamber of the Galactic Coalition, dozens of species watched a dying world in silence. The planet below was called Karos Minor, a quiet frontier colony. It had no great fleets, no powerful allies. It had been chosen for one reason only: to be an example. Above the planet, the Xeran Dominion fleet moved with perfect order. Hundreds of warships formed precise attack lines. Their hulls glowed with controlled energy. Their commanders spoke calmly, confidently. They had done this before. For centuries, the Xerans claimed they were the masters of war, not because they enjoyed violence, but because they believed war was an art, and they were its greatest artists. Entire civilizations had fallen to prove that point. Today was another lesson. A single command was given. The attack began. Orbital defense stations fired first. Bright flashes of resistance reached up from the planet like desperate prayers. They lasted less than a minute. Xeran weapons cut through shields and armor as if they were fog. Cities burned. Continents cracked. The coalition observers shifted uncomfortably. Some turned away. Others watched with cold detachment. This was terrible, but it was expected. Then a sensor officer froze. Unidentified mass entering the outer system. The voice said, strained. No known drive signature. The Xeran commander laughed softly. Debris, he said. Ignore it. But the object kept coming. It was big, larger than a Xeran battleship, larger than anything most of the observers had ever seen. And yet it moved slowly, almost lazily, like it had all the time in the universe. No escorts followed it. No weapons fire. No shields flared. Coalition analysts scanned it again and again. The readings made no sense. The ship's design was crude by modern standards. Heavy armor plates. Angular structures. No visible energy fields. An old ship. A relic. The Xerans adjusted targeting solutions out of habit, not concern. Then the object transmitted a signal. Not encrypted. Not encoded. A plain broadcast across every known frequency. The translation systems worked instantly. This is a human vessel. The chamber went silent. Several species stared at their consoles, confused. Others showed signs of fear they did not understand. The word echoed through archived memory banks. Humans. A species listed as extinct. Or irrelevant. Or both. The transmission continued. You are engaging in an unauthorized extermination action. Power down your weapons and prepare to surrender. For a moment, just a moment, the Xeran commander said nothing. Then he laughed. A ghost, he said. An old myth drifting on dead engines. He gave the order without hesitation. Destroy it. Dozens of Xeran ships fired at once. Beams of compressed plasma and gravity-based weapons slammed into the approaching vessel. Space itself twisted under the force. The observers expected fire. Explosions. Wreckage. None came. When the light faded, the human ship was still there. Unmoved. Undamaged. Not even slowing. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Xeran targeting systems recalibrated. Heavier weapons charged. Antimatter shells launched. Again, nothing. The ship did not raise shields. It did not return fire. It simply kept coming. Then the human vessel changed course slightly. Just enough to align itself with the heart of the Xeran formation. A deep, unfamiliar energy spike rolled across every sensor array. Coalition scientists panicked, shouting warnings they did not fully understand. The Xeran commander's confidence finally wavered. What weapon is that? Someone demanded. The answer came from the human ship itself. Primary system online. The vessel stopped. Space seemed to hold its breath. Below, Karos Minor burned. Above, the Xeran fleet prepared to fire again. And across the galaxy, long-forgotten records stirred, whispering a truth no one had wanted to remember. Humanity had never mastered war. They had survived it. The human ship's main weapon charged, and the galaxy was about to learn the difference. The word human spread through the Galactic Coalition chamber like a slow poison. Screens filled with archive windows. Ancient records were unlocked, some sealed for centuries. Data cores that had not been accessed in living memory began to hum again. Automated systems searched desperately for context, for explanation, for reassurance. They found very little. Humanity appeared only in fragments. Old trade logs, broken military reports, faded diplomatic warnings marked obsolete. Most entries ended the same way. Status, unknown. Threat level, negligible. Recommended action, monitor only. A few observers began to feel something close to shame. On the main display, the human battleship hung motionless before the Ziran fleet. It did not glow with energy. It did not display shields or defensive formations. It simply existed, dark, scarred, and massive. The Zirans fired again, this time with precision. Focused beams struck exact points along the human hull. Gravity weapons attempted to tear it apart from the inside, a tactic that had shattered moons. The human ship responded by doing nothing. The attacks bent around it, dissipated, failed. Coalition scientists argued loudly now. The readings made no sense. The ship was not deflecting energy, it was enduring it. Its mass readings fluctuated in impossible ways, as if the vessel refused to obey standard physics. One older observer, being older than most star empires, stared silently. "They are still here," it said at last. No one asked who they were. The Ziran commander's confidence cracked, but only slightly. Pride held him upright. "Humans," he said aloud, tasting the word like something unpleasant. "A primitive species. Ballistic weapons. Chemical war. Internal conflict. They destroyed their own planet before we ever reached the stars." Some coalition members nodded. That was the version history remembered. "Even if this ship is real," the commander continued, "it is alone." The human ship interrupted him. Another broadcast, calm and unhurried. "You are incorrect." The Zirans attempted to jam the signal. It went through anyway. Humanity did not destroy itself. Humanity survived itself. Silence followed. Then, without warning, the human ship released data. Coalition systems were flooded with images, timelines, recordings. Not propaganda. Not threats. History. Primitive human battlefields. Trenches filled with mud and blood. Cities leveled by weapons that required no advanced technology, only intent. Entire populations are driven to extinction not by aliens, but by humans fighting humans. War after war. Century after century. The footage accelerated. Nations fell. Empires rose and collapsed. Weapons evolved, from blades to bullets, from fire to nuclear suns. The observers recoiled. This was not a proud history. It was brutal, wasteful, horrifying. The human transmission continued. "We learned early that war does not reward the strong. It rewards the prepared. It rewards the patient." The Zirans attempted another attack, more powerful than before. The human ship finally responded. Not with a weapon, with movement. It advanced. The distance between the fleets closed faster than expected. The ship's engines burned with a dull, heavy glow, nothing elegant or refined. Just force. Coalition tacticians realized the truth at the same time. The Zirans had been fighting at range. Humans were closing for certainty. A Ziran cruiser attempted to ram the human ship, an act of desperation disguised as bravery. The collision never happened. The human vessel extended a structure from its hull. Massive, mechanical, unmistakably physical. A gun, not an energy emitter. A rail cannon. The weapon fired once. There was no flash. No dramatic explosion. The Ziran cruiser simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, removed. Space folded inward for a fraction of a second, then snapped back into place. Shockwaves rippled across the battlefield. Coalition sensors overloaded. Some systems shut down to avoid damage. When vision returned, the Ziran formation had a hole in it. A perfect, silent void where a warship had been. The Ziran commander stared. "That is impossible," he whispered. The human ship spoke again. That was a warning. Panic spread through Ziran command channels. Orders overlapped. Formation discipline broke. Ships maneuvered without coordination, a rare sight for a species that prided itself on control. Coalition observers noticed something else. The human ship did not pursue. It did not press the advantage. Instead, it altered orbit, placing itself between the Ziran fleet and the burning planet below, protecting it. Evacuation signatures appeared. Small craft, human drones, launched from hidden bays, diving into the planet's atmosphere. They did not carry weapons. They carried shields, medical pods, transport capacity. "They are rescuing civilians," a stunned observer said. "Why?" another asked. No one answered. The Zirans recovered enough to speak again. "You protect those who are already lost," the commander sneered. "That makes you weak." The human reply was immediate. "No, it makes us finished learning." A new set of records unlocked in Coalition archives. This time, they were not human. They belonged to extinct species. Each one had encountered humanity at some point in the distant past. Some had fought them. Some had nearly destroyed them. All had survived, until something else finished the job. The pattern was undeniable. Where humans fought, destruction was limited. Where the Zirans conquered, nothing remained. The Ziran commander realized the trap too late. The human ship was not there to win a battle. It was there to redefine one. You call yourselves masters of war, the human voice said, quieter now. But you only know how to end others. The ship's weapons powered down. That terrified the observers more than any attack. We know how to end war itself. The human ship held position. The Ziran fleet hesitated. Below them, evacuation continued. The coalition chamber was silent again, but this time, not from fear. From understanding. The galaxy had not forgotten humanity. It had simply assumed they were gone. And now, standing between annihilation and survival, the truth became impossible to ignore. Humanity had been watching, waiting, learning, and this was only the beginning. The Ziran fleet did not retreat. They could not. For the Ziran Dominion, retreat was more than failure. It was a collapse of identity. Their culture was built on a single belief. War was their natural state, and mastery of it proved superiority. To withdraw now, before a single ship, from a species declared forgotten, would shatter that belief forever. So they chose escalation. Across the void, Ziran battleships shifted formation. Energy conduits flared brighter than before. Massive weapon systems began charging, drawing power from reactors designed for planetary extermination. Coalition observers recognized the pattern and felt dread. They're preparing synchronized annihilation fire, one analyst said. They'll burn everything in front of them, including the planet. No, another replied quietly. Including themselves. The Zirans no longer cared. The human battleship remained still. Its engines idled. Its weapons stayed silent. From a tactical standpoint, it made no sense. Any known doctrine would demand preemptive action. Humans did not move. The Ziran commander raised his claws. Fire, he ordered. The fleet obeyed. Light vanished. What followed was not brightness, but absence. Energy so intense it erased starlight. Gravity waves collided, folded, and tore at the fabric of space. Antimatter detonations overlapped into a storm that should have reduced entire solar systems to debris. Coalition screens filled with static. Several observers lost consciousness as sensor feedback overwhelmed their neural interfaces. When systems recovered, the battlefield reappeared. The planet was still there. Damaged, burning, scarred, but alive. And between it and the Ziran fleet, the human ship remained. It was no longer untouched. Sections of its armor glowed dull red. Hull plates were warped, cracked, torn open in places. Internal fires burned behind exposed frameworks. But the ship was intact, functional, advancing. A collective shudder passed through the coalition chamber. That barrage should have destroyed a star, someone whispered. The human vessel finally spoke. Its voice was different now. Lower, heavier. We warned you. The ship surged forward. Not fast, not dramatic, relentless. Ziran commanders screamed orders. Fleets scattered, abandoning formation discipline as fear replaced doctrine. Smaller ships attempted evasive maneuvers, but the human vessel tracked them with terrifying calm. Weapons activated across its hull. Not energy cannons. Mass drivers. Rail systems. Launch bays. The human ship did not fire wildly. It fired selectively. One Ziran destroyer lost engines, disabled, drifting. Another had its weapons torn apart, but its hull left intact. Command ships were isolated, cut off, surrounded by silence. Coalition tacticians stared at the data. They're not fighting to destroy, one said. They're fighting to control. Ziran ships returned fire, but their attacks grew desperate and unfocused. The human ship absorbed what it could, ignoring what it didn't need to stop. Then something changed. A Ziran dreadnought broke from the chaos, charging its core far beyond safe limits. That ship is overloading, an observer shouted. If it detonates. The human battleship altered course instantly. It moved to intercept. The Ziran dreadnought exploded. The blast should have torn the human ship apart. Instead, the human vessel took it head-on. Sensors recorded an impossible event. The human ship's mass spiked dramatically for less than a second. Gravitational anchors flared. The explosion collapsed inward, swallowed by the ship's forward structure. When the energy cleared, the human vessel was still there. More damage. Still advancing. Coalition science councils erupted into chaos. That's not shielding, one expert said. That's containment. Another shook their head. No species builds ships that way. It's inefficient. Wasteful. A third answered softly. Unless you expect to be hit. The Xiran commander watched his fleet unravel. Ships disabled. Command broken. Weapons silenced. All by one enemy vessel. One. His species had crushed armadas larger than this without pause. He opened a direct channel. The human response was immediate. The screen is filled with a human figure. Not armored. Not imposing. Just tired. Scars marked his face. His eyes carried weight, not rage. You are not what the records described, Xiran said carefully now. No, the human replied. They never are. You could destroy us, the commander said. Why haven't you? The human officer did not answer right away. Behind him, alarms sounded. Damage reports scrolled past. The ship was suffering. Anyone watching could see it. We don't fight wars to prove dominance, the human said at last. We fight them to remove the need for another. The Xiran commander clenched his claws. That is a lie. War always returns. Yes, the human agreed. Unless someone ends it properly. A pause. Then the human continued. Your fleet will be disabled in 7 minutes. Your command structure will collapse in 12. Your empire will fracture in less than a cycle. The Xiran recoiled. You cannot know that. We already ran the simulations, the human said calmly. The coalition chamber erupted in stunned whispers. The human officer leaned forward slightly. You call yourselves masters of war, but you never asked why wars start. You only learned how to win them. The channel cut. Across the battlefield, human drones continued evacuations. Refugees were carried away from the dying world below, even as Xiran ships drifted powerless above it. A coalition observer finally spoke the thought forming in every mind. They could have destroyed the Xirans completely. Yes, another replied. But they didn't. The human ship slowed. It stopped firing. It simply held position, dominant, damaged, unyielding. A silent declaration. The Xiran fleet was broken. But the war was not over. Because now the galaxy understood something far more dangerous than raw power. Humanity did not fight to conquer. They fought to decide what survived. And for the first time in recorded history, the masters of war realized they were no longer in control of it. The battlefield went quiet. Not the calm of peace, but the silence that follows something irreversible. Xiran warships drifted across the system like broken thoughts. Some still had power, but no weapons. Others were completely dark, their crews alive yet helpless, trapped inside steel shells that no longer answered commands. The human battleship remained between them and the planet. Scarred, burning in places, refusing to fall. Coalition observers expected the next step to be extermination. That was how war ended, according to every known doctrine. Once an enemy was crippled, you finished them. You erased the threat. You sent a message. The humans did none of that. Minutes passed. Then something unexpected happened. Human channels opened. This time not to the Xirans, but to the Coalition. The signal carried no threat, no demand. Only data. Live feeds from the planet below. Cities in ruins. The atmosphere is burning. Oceans poisoned. Millions dead. But also something else. Human evacuation teams moved through the chaos. Their ships landed in firestorms. Their crews entered collapsing structures. They pulled survivors from rubble while explosions thundered overhead. Coalition observers leaned forward. They're still sending people down, one whispered. The fighting isn't over. They don't seem to care, another replied. They're acting like it already is. On the surface, a human medic knelt beside a wounded alien child. For arms, cracked exoskeleton, terrified eyes. The medic cut away armor not designed for human hands and sealed wounds with tools adapted on the fly. The child lived. That image spread across the coalition chamber faster than any weapon feed. The Xiran commander watched it too. His voice came through again, weaker now. Controlled, but strained. You protect our victims, he said. Why? The human officer appeared once more. His uniform was stained. His posture is stiff with exhaustion. Because they didn't choose this war, he said. They were under our rule, Zirin replied sharply. They benefited from our order. The human shook his head. You burned their cities to make a point. That is war. No, the human said. That is cruelty with logistics. The Zirin commander's claws tightened. You crippled my fleet, he said. You humiliated us before the galaxy. And still you don't finish it. You hesitate. The human's expression hardened, not with anger, but with something colder. This, he said, gesturing toward the drifting Zirin ships, is not hesitation. The human ship transmitted a new data packet. Coalition systems hesitated before opening it. Some feared it was a weapon. It was not. It was a map. A web of supply lines, shipyards, command hubs, and political centers spread across Zirin-controlled space. Every critical node was marked. Some were flashing red. They've already been hit, a coalition strategist realized. Not destroyed. Neutralized. Human operations were unfolding across multiple systems simultaneously. Silent strikes. No broadcasts. No spectacle. Zirin logistics were collapsing in real time. Fuel depots shut down. Communications failed. Regional commanders lost contact with central authority. The Zirin commander stared at the data in disbelief. You planned this before you arrived, he said. Yes, the human replied. How long? The human hesitated. Longer than you think. The Zirin straightened. Then kill us. End it. The human officer leaned closer to the camera. No, he said quietly. That's the old way. Confusion rippled through the coalition chamber. What old way? The Zirin demanded. The human did not answer immediately. Instead, he shared another set of images. Human history. This time, not battles. Aftermaths. Cities rebuilding after nuclear fire. Children learning under shattered roofs. Former enemies standing together because there was no one left to fight. The images were slower now. Heavier. We tried extermination, the humans said. We tried domination. We tried fear. None of it worked. We always came back. But then, he continued, we learned something harder. The image shifted. A human leader standing before their own military, ordering disarmament. Another dismantling of a weapon that could have ended the world again. Sacrifice. We learned that ending war means breaking the systems that create it, the human said. The Zirin commander's voice dropped. You're dismantling us. Yes. Without killing us. Yes. Why? The Zirin whispered. The human's gaze was steady. Because if we erase you, he said, someone else will become you. Silence followed. Then a new alarm sounded across coalition systems. A deep space signature appeared far beyond the battlefield. Not one object. Many. Human ships. Not a fleet in formation, but a dispersed presence spread across jump points, borders, and strategic corridors. They had been there the entire time. Watching. Waiting. The coalition realized the truth with a collective chill. The battleship here was never meant to win the war alone. It was bait. It was proof. It was the opening statement. The Zirin commander slumped. You've already won, he said. No, the human replied. We've only stopped you. The human ship powered down its weapons completely. That terrified the Zirins more than any barrage. Your empire will survive, the human continued. But it will not look the same. Your fleets will be limited. Your war doctrine dismantled. Your command structures are rewritten. You can't enforce that forever, the Zirin snapped weakly. We don't have to, the human said. You will. The channel closed. Across Zirin space, systems failed, not catastrophically, but permanently altered. Automated war production lines shut down. Military AIs were locked behind human-coded constraints. The Zirins were being forced to face a future without endless war. Coalition delegates began to speak, arguing, panicking, re-evaluating everything they believed about power. One voice cut through them all. If humans can do this to the Zirins, an observer said slowly, what could they do to us? The answer came unspoken. They didn't need to. The human battleship remained in orbit, damaged but dominant. Below, the last evacuation transports lifted from the planet. For the first time since the war began, no one was firing. The Zirins were not destroyed. They were contained. And the galaxy began to understand the most terrifying truth of all. Humanity did not conquer worlds. They restructured destinies. And now that the masters of war had been broken without annihilation, every other power in the galaxy had a single, unavoidable question to face. If humanity ever decided someone truly could not be allowed to exist, Would there even be a war? Or would it simply be over before it began? The Ziran Dominion did not collapse loudly. There were no final explosions. No desperate last stand broadcast across the stars. Instead, it began to fail quietly. Across Ziran space, commanders waited for orders that never came. Fleets sat idle, weapons locked by systems they could no longer override. Shipyards remained intact, but could no longer produce warships. Factories still stood, but their outputs had been changed, repurposed, redirected. War had been removed from the equation. The coalition watched this unfold with growing unease. This was not victory as the galaxy understood it. This was surgery. In the system above Karos Minor, the human battleship drifted in high orbit. Damaged crews worked without rest. Entire sections of the ship were sealed off, sacrificed to keep the core stable. Internal gravity fluctuated. Fires still burned in places no one could reach. The ship should have retreated. It did not. Coalition analysts finally understood why. The battleship was not just a warship. It was a lock, and something very dangerous was sealed inside it. Deep within the vessel, far below armor and containment fields, human officers gathered around a chamber no coalition species had ever seen. The space was small, reinforced, isolated from the rest of the ship. At its center floated a device that bent every sensor pointed at it. A sphere of impossible density. It was not active. Not yet. This was never supposed to be seen, one human engineer said quietly. Another nodded. It still shouldn't be. The human officer who had spoken to the Zirans watched the readouts in silence. Has the coalition figured it out? Someone asked. They're close, he replied. They always are. Coalition scientists argued fiercely in their chambers. They replayed sensor data again and again, focusing on moments that made no sense. The mass spikes, the containment events, the way the human ship absorbed destruction that should not have been survivable. One theory finally gained traction. That ship isn't surviving attacks, a senior analyst said slowly. It's storing them. The chamber went still. Explain. The ship converts incoming energy, kinetic force, even space-time distortion, into something else. It doesn't dissipate it. It contains it. Another voice joined in, horrified. As potential. A third finished the thought. As a weapon. The realization spread like cold fire. The human battleship was not powerful because of what it fired. It was powerful because of what it refused to release. Coalition channels lit up with urgent requests for clarification. The human response came, not to all, but to a select few. A private transmission. Unencrypted. The human officer appeared again, his face more worn than before. You're asking about the containment core, he said. None denied it. Yes, a coalition representative said carefully. We are. The human studied them for a long moment. This conversation was not meant to happen, he said. But you're already close enough. He gestured off-screen. What you detected is correct. The ship contains a final response system. A pause. We call it the end state. Silence. It is not a bomb, the human continued. It is not a weapon in the way you understand weapons. Then what is it? Someone asked. The human exhaled. It is what we built after we realized something terrifying, he said. That no matter how strong we became, someone else would always try to test it. The display shifted. A simulation appeared. A human world, ringed by fleets from dozens of hostile species. No allies. No escape routes. The end state activated. Space collapsed inward. Not violently. Cleanly. Every hostile force vanished. Not destroyed. Removed from causality. No debris. No radiation. No echo. The system stabilized afterward, untouched. The coalition representatives recoiled. That violates, someone began. Everything. The human finished. Yes. Why build it at all? Another demanded. Because we learned restraint too late the first time, the human replied. He showed them another image. A human world. Broken. Dead. Our history taught us a rule, he said. If extinction is ever truly inevitable, make it mutual. The coalition fell silent. You didn't use it, one finally said. No. Why not? The human's eyes hardened. Because the moment we do, he said, we become the final answer to every conflict. The connection ended. But the truth could not be contained anymore. Word spread, carefully, quietly, through coalition intelligence networks. Humanity possessed a weapon that could erase fleets, empires, entire wars in a single act. And they had chosen not to use it. The Zirans learned of it last. A fractured command channel finally reached the human ship. The Ziran commander's image flickered, exhaustion etched deep into his features. "You could have ended us," he said. "Yes." "You chose not to." "Yes." "Why?" The human officer did not hesitate this time. "Because your destruction would teach the wrong lesson." "What lesson is that?" Ziran asked bitterly. "That fear is enough," the human replied. "It isn't." The Ziran stared. "What is?" "Memory," the human said. "Consequence." "You dismantled our empire," Ziran said. "Our fleets. Our identity." "No," the human corrected. "We dismantled your addiction to war." The Ziran laughed softly, broken. "You think that will last?" "It doesn't have to last forever," the human said. "Only long enough." "For what?" "For the galaxy to understand that there is a line," the human replied. "And that crossing has a cost." A new alert sounded across coalition space. Another power had been watching. Another empire, far from the battlefield, had begun mobilizing its fleets. Quietly, carefully, they had seen the Zirans fall without being destroyed. They had learned the wrong lesson. Coalition observers felt dread settle in their cores. "They're testing the limits," someone whispered. On the human battleship, alarms flared. The containment core pulsed faintly for the first time. Engineers froze. "End-state fluctuation detected," one said. The human officer closed his eyes for a moment. "Seal the chamber," he ordered. "Maximum containment." "Yes, sir." The ship groaned as systems compensated. Far away, the unknown empire's fleets continued to move. The galaxy held its breath. Because now everyone knows the truth. Humanity was not dangerous because of what it could destroy. Humanity was dangerous because, when pushed far enough, they had built something they hoped to never forgive themselves for using. And if the galaxy forced their hand, there would be no war, only an ending. The first sign was not an attack. It was silent. Coalition early warning arrays detected fleets moving in distant sectors, large, disciplined, deliberate. The unknown empire did not announce itself. It did not threaten. It did not posture. It simply advanced. Their ships were unlike Ziran designs. Sleek, modular, adaptive, built for long campaigns, not quick victories. Their formations shifted constantly, responding to probability rather than command. Coalition analysts grew uneasy. "These aren't conquerors," one said. "They're testers." They were probing the edges of human restraint. In the Kairos system, the human battleship felt the change before anyone else did. Long-range sensors registered coordinated movements across multiple fronts. Quiet sabotage attempts struck human listening posts. Data packets carried carefully engineered misinformation, meant to measure response time and tolerance. The enemy was learning. On the human ship, the mood shifted. Damage crews worked faster. Engineers spoke less. Officers began issuing contingency orders they had hoped would never leave simulation rooms. The containment core pulsed again. This time, it did not stop. "In-state pressure rising," an engineer reported. "Containment is stable, but margins are shrinking." The human officer nodded once. "Understood." A junior officer hesitated. "Sir, if they push harder." "We hold," the human said. "That hasn't changed." Coalition delegates demanded answers. Emergency councils formed. Panic spread through less disciplined powers. "They're provoking humans on purpose," one representative said. "They want to see how far restraint goes." "And if it breaks?" another asked. No one answered. The unknown empire finally revealed itself, not with words, but with action. A coalition outpost near human-protected space vanished. No explosion, no debris, just gone. The message was clear. "We can do it too." Coalition channels erupted. Accusations flew. Demands were made. Some begged the humans to respond decisively. Others begged them not to. The human battleship received the report in silence. Then, something unexpected happened. The human ship turned away from the enemy's direction. It moved toward the vanished outpost. "What are they doing?" a coalition observer asked. The answer came in fragments. Human recovery teams deployed. Deep-skin arrays combed the void. Quantum traces were analyzed, reconstructed, followed backward through causality fractures. "They're rebuilding the moment," a scientist whispered. Human systems mapped the exact instant the outpost disappeared. The exact configuration of matter, energy, and probability. They could not restore what was lost, but they could understand it. Hours passed. The enemy fleets advanced again, this time closer. Pressure mounted. Coalition defenses wavered. On the human ship, alarms began to sound in earnest. Containment threshold approaching, the engineer warned. If the end state destabilizes. We know, the human officer said quietly. Sir, another voice cut in, strained. We're losing secondary bulkheads. Hull integrity at 60%. The ship shook. A direct hit, kinetic, massive, slammed into the human vessel's flank. Not a killing blow, but precise. Surgical. The enemy was not trying to destroy the ship. They were trying to make a choice. Coalition screens showed the damage clearly. The human battleship bled. The atmosphere vented into space. Fires burned uncontrolled. Casualty reports climbed. For the first time, fear crept into the coalition chamber. Not fear of humans, but fear for them. They're hurting, someone whispered. The enemy fleet paused its advance. A single transmission came through, encoded but readable. Demonstrate final capability. The implication was unmistakable. Use the weapon, or prove you won't. On the human ship, the bridge was chaotic. We can't hold much longer, a damage officer shouted. Containment and hull both degrading. End-state stabilization requires venting, the engineer added. If pressure continues, it will breach on its own. The junior officer looked at the human commander. If it breaches uncontrolled, it takes everything with it. The commander finished. A dead silence fell. The choice was no longer theoretical. The commander closed his eyes for a moment. Then he made his decision. Broadcast to all channels, he said. Sir, someone asked. To everyone, he repeated. Coalition. Enemy. All frequencies. The transmission went out. The human officer stood before the camera, blood visible at his temple. Smoke drifted behind him. The ship groaned around him like a wounded animal. This is Captain Hale of the human defense vessel Resolute, he said. His voice was steady, but not loud. To all listening, the enemy fleet held position. Coalition chambers went silent. We have been tested, Hale continued. Not because we are feared, but because we are doubted. He took a breath. We were underestimated once. Forgotten. Left behind. The feed shifted. Images of early human spaceflight appeared. Fragile ships. Thin hulls. Crews packed into metal shells with little more than hope and math keeping them alive. We survived by learning what loss feels like, Hale said. By paying the cost of every mistake. The image changed. Human colonies under attack. Evacuations. Last stands. Names of the dead scrolling endlessly. We built the end state because we were afraid, Hale admitted. Afraid that one day, survival would demand becoming monsters. The enemy transmission channel flickered, but remained open. We refuse, Hale said, voice hardening. To let fear decide our future. Behind him, alarms screamed. Captain, someone shouted. Containment breach imminent. Hale did not turn. To the Empire watching us, he said. You want proof of our power. The human ship shuddered violently. Hale looked directly into the camera. This is it. He raised his hand. Manual override, he ordered. Divert end-state pressure into hull reinforcement. The bridge erupted. That will. An engineer began, then stopped, eyes wide. The readings changed. Containment pressure dropped. Hull stress spiked beyond safe limits. The ship screamed as reality itself strained to keep it together. Coalition scientists stared in horror. They're bleeding off the weapon, one said. Into the ship. The enemy fleet began firing again. The human ship did not evade. It absorbed the blows. Armor failed. Bulkheads collapsed. Crew members were lost. But the end state stabilized. Hale spoke again, voice rough now. We will not erase you, he said to the enemy. We will not become the end of history. The enemy fleet hesitated. Hale's voice dropped. But understand this. The camera zoomed out, showing the Resolute, broken, burning, barely holding together, still between the enemy and coalition space. We will stand here, Hale said, bleeding, breaking, dying if we must. Because restraint is not weakness. The enemy fleet powered down its weapons. Coalition delegates exhaled as one. The test had failed, or succeeded, depending on perspective. On the human ship, medics rushed through smoke-filled corridors. Engineers sealed ruptures by hand. Survivors helped the wounded. The Resolute drifted, barely alive. But it held. The enemy fleets withdrew slowly, thoughtfully. They had seen the truth. Humanity's greatest power was not the end state. It was the choice to suffer instead of using it. Across the galaxy, the story spread, not of domination, but of a single ship that chose to bleed rather than end everything. And for the first time, other powers began to ask a different question. Not how do we fight humans, but what kind of galaxy do we become if we force them to stop holding back? The galaxy did not celebrate. There were no victory broadcasts, no triumphal speeches, no declarations carved into stone or data. There was only quiet. In the days after the enemy fleets withdrew, star systems across coalition space slowed, as if the universe itself needed time to breathe again. Military alerts were downgraded. Emergency councils adjourned without resolutions. War doctrines, once sacred, were quietly archived, flagged for review. No one knew what to replace them with. The human battleship Resolute remained where it was. It did not pursue the retreating enemy. It did not advance. It drifted in high orbit above the scarred system, held together by damage controls, human stubbornness, and something harder to measure. Will. Coalition medical vessels arrived first, cautiously. They expected refusal. Humans had always been private about their losses. Instead, the Resolute opened its base. What coalition medics found inside unsettled them more than the battle ever had. The corridors were ruined. Hull plates buckled inward. Entire sections were sealed off, entombed with the dead still inside. The air smelled of burned metal and sterilizing agents. Human crew members moved through it all with quiet efficiency. No panic, no despair. They spoke softly. They helped each other stand. They marked the fallen with symbols and words no translation software could fully render. "They're mourning," a coalition observer whispered. "Yes," another replied. "But they're still working." Captain Hale was found in the medical bay, sitting upright despite orders to remain sedated. His injuries were severe. Shrapnel wounds, internal bleeding, exhaustion so deep it bordered on collapse. Yet his first question was not about the ship. "Did the civilians get out?" he asked. A medic hesitated, then nodded. "All evacuees accounted for." Hale closed his eyes. Good. News spread, not of the enemy's retreat, but of humanity's condition. Images leaked across the galaxy. The shattered Resolute, human engineers patching hull breaches by hand, medics working without rest, civilians from a dozen species sheltered aboard human transports. The narrative changed. For the first time, humanity was not framed as a looming threat. They were framed as a cost. Coalition populations reacted in ways no analyst had predicted. On worlds once indifferent to war, vigils were held. On planets that had feared humanity, donations flowed, materials, medical aid, engineers offering help. Even former Syrian territories sent aid. Quietly, without banners. The Xiran commander, no longer a commander, just a survivor, watched these developments from enforced confinement. His empire was still intact, but unrecognizable. Fleets grounded. War councils dissolved. Propaganda networks dismantled. He requested a meeting. The coalition hesitated, then granted it. The transmission connected. Captain Hale appeared, pale but upright, supported by a brace at his side. Xiran studied him for a long moment. "You should be dead," Xiran said. Hale shrugged faintly. "We're bad at that. You broke us without destroying us," Xiran continued. "And now, the galaxy sides with you." "We didn't ask them to," Hale replied. "No," Xiran said slowly. "That's what frightens me." He lowered his gaze. "All our history," he said, "we believed fear was the only language the galaxy understood." Hale leaned forward slightly. "It still is," he said. "But it's not the only one." The Xiran was silent. "You bled," he said at last. "On purpose." "Yes." "To prove restraint. To prove choice," Hale corrected. Xiran's voice softened. "What happens now?" Hale did not answer immediately. Outside the viewports, coalition ships worked alongside human crews, repairing what they could. No one gave orders. They simply helped. "Now," Hale said, "we live with what we showed everyone." Across the galaxy, military academies struggled. Their simulations no longer worked. Scenarios built around deterrence, escalation, and overwhelming force failed when human variables were introduced. Every projection ended the same way, not with conquest, but with collapse of the system that started the war. A new doctrine began to circulate. Not official, not named, but it spread. If humans arrive, the war is already over. What remains is choosing how it ends. The unknown empire, the testers, watched quietly from their borders. They did not rearm. They did not advance. They rewrote policy. They had learned something far more valuable than data. They had learned where the line was. And that crossing it would not bring victory, only consequences no one could control. On the Resolute, repairs continued. The in-state containment chamber was sealed behind layers of restriction. Its fluctuations had ceased. The weapon slept again, heavier than before. Human engineers argued about it in low voices. Next time, one said, we might not have a choice. Hale overheard them. Then we'll hope there isn't a next time, he said. But if there is, another asked. Hale looked at the scarred bulkhead, at the names etched there by the crew. Then we'll choose again, he said. And pay the price again. Coalition historians struggled to write about the event. They could not classify it as a war. It lacked the usual markers: no decisive battle, no formal surrender, no occupation. In the end, they named it something simpler: the intervention. Children across the galaxy began to learn the story, not of a fleet, not a weapon, but of a single ship that stood between annihilation and restraint, and chose restraint. The galaxy slept uneasily after that, because peace had not been won. It had been demonstrated, and everyone understood the unspoken truth. Humanity was not watching the stars for enemies. They were watching for moments when someone would force them to decide again. And next time, there might be no ship left willing to bleed in silence. There might be only an ending. Still, for now, the Resolute held. Damaged, scarred, alive, a reminder drifting in the dark, that the most powerful force in the galaxy was not destruction. It was the choice to endure it. The galaxy did not return to normal. It could not. Too many assumptions had died. Too many certainties had been stripped away, not by conquest, but by restraint so costly it frightened even those it protected. In the cycles that followed the intervention, borders still existed. Governments still argued. Fleets still patrolled. But something fundamental had changed in the quiet spaces between stars. War was no longer abstract. It had a face, a name, a cost everyone now understood. The human battleship Resolute never returned to Earth. It could have. Repairs were finally complete. Coalition shipyards offered upgrades, reinforcements, escorts, anything humanity wanted. The answer was always the same: no. Instead, the Resolute took position in a deep, unclaimed region of space. Far from trade lanes, far from borders, close enough to reach anywhere if needed, but distant enough to be unmistakably neutral. It became a marker, not a threat, a reminder. Coalition observers noticed something strange almost immediately. Conflict dropped, not vanished, but slowed. Border skirmishes de-escalated before fleets fully mobilized. Political leaders hesitated before approving necessary force. Military councils ran simulations and quietly canceled them when the outcomes became uncomfortable. Because every scenario eventually reached the same question: what happens if humans intervene? And no one liked the answer. The Xeran Dominion changed the most. Without their fleets, without their doctrine of endless conquest, they struggled. Internal divisions surfaced. Former client species demanded autonomy. Old enemies tested weakened borders. And yet, the Xerans did not return to war. Their former commander, now simply an advisor, spoke before their ruling council. "We believed strength was measured by how much fear we could create," he said. "We were wrong." Some resisted. Many did not. They remembered the human ship. They remembered how it could have erased them, and chose not to. Across coalition space, a new term entered common language: human margin. It meant the space between escalation and annihilation. The line humanity had drawn and bled to protect. Military academies rewrote their teachings. Old principles like total victory and absolute deterrence were replaced with unfamiliar concepts: cost awareness, irreversible thresholds, moral mass. Cadets were shown footage of the Resolute absorbing fire, venting atmosphere, losing crew, while refusing to deploy the end state. They were asked a single question: would you have chosen the same? Most did not answer. On the Resolute, life continued quietly. Crew rotations changed. Some veterans left, carrying scars no medical scanner could see. New crew arrived, knowing exactly what ship they were boarding and what it symbolized. Captain Hale eventually relinquished command, not because he was forced to, because he believed no one should hold that responsibility for too long. On his last day aboard, he stood alone in the observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly before him. He knew what the galaxy now whispered: that humans were guardians, that humans were judges, that humans were the last word in war. He hated all of it. Humanity had never wanted that role. They had wanted to be left alone. Hale recorded a final message before leaving the ship. It was not broadcast widely, only archived, accessible to any civilization willing to search deeply enough. It was simple. We are not here to save the galaxy. We are here because someone must remember what war really costs. If one day we stop coming when called, that does not mean you are free. It means you have failed to learn. The Resolute remained. Years passed. A generation grew up that had never seen a galactic war. They studied it like a relic, something dangerous, distant, half-forgotten. That worried some. Human observers noticed the subtle shift. New powers rose. Economies boomed. Confidence returned. And confidence, humans knew, often led to arrogance. The first true test came quietly. A minor power, young, ambitious, technologically gifted, began pushing its neighbors. Not brutally, not openly, just enough. Coalition debates dragged on. Sanctions were proposed. Talks scheduled. The power ignored them. Human listening posts detected the pattern immediately. Preparations. Supply alignment. Narrative framing. The old rhythm. A message was sent. Not from Earth. Not from the Coalition. From the Resolute. One sentence. Stand down. The response came hours later. Dismissive. Confidence. The power believed the stories were exaggerated. That humanity was tired. That the end state was a myth. They moved their fleets. The Resolute did not move. Instead, human diplomats arrived, unarmed, unthreatening. They showed projections, not of destruction, of consequences. Economic collapse, infrastructure failure, political fracture, not caused by weapons, caused by choice. The power hesitated. For the first time, they asked for time. The crisis ended without a shot fired. Across the galaxy, something subtle but profound took hold. Restraint became prestigious, not as morality, as for survival. The end state was never used. That fact became its greatest power, because everyone knew it existed, and everyone knew what humanity had paid to avoid activating it. Centuries later, historians would argue about when the human era truly began. Some pointed to first contact, others to the intervention, a few to the day humanity bled. But among humans, there was a different answer. It began the moment someone chose not to win. The moment a ship absorbed destruction meant for others. The moment the galaxy learned that power did not have to end in extinction. In distant systems, children of many species learned a simple story. Once, the galaxy believed war was inevitable. Then a forgotten species returned. Not with an armada, not with conquest, but with a single ship that refused to become a god. And because of that, the galaxy survived itself. The Resolute still drifts among the stars. Scarred, silent, watching, not as a threat, as a question. And every civilization that looks upon it must eventually answer the same thing. What are you willing to become when you finally have the power to end everything? Humanity answered once. They hope they will never be forced to answer again. But if they are, they will remember. And the galaxy will too.